detectives? Welcome, and today we're going to be covering Clerk. This is the newest hunter that just came out, and a lot of players are having a hard time learning her. So I've taken the liberty of playing a rough 30 to 40 games with her, getting my ass handed to me, and learning the fundamentals. So I have a good grasp of how to play Clerk. I'm no master. I hope I can be in the future, but just to help some players out, I'm going to be covering just her basic kit and how she works. I haven't made a tutorial video in a very long time. I mean, I've only done a Leo video, but this hunter is very complex. There's so much in her kit that I actually needed to bring in somebody to help me out to explain how all her powers work. So a quick review of just how her power works before I go into depth. Basically, she could record survivors interacting with objects, and she could use those recordings against them. She could play it regular to sandbag survivors when dropping pallets, or she could hit it in reverse and undo pallets, undo ciphers, undo window vaults that could sandbag a survivor. Ultimately, there's a lot of multitasking that has to be done when playing Clerk. You have to be able to manage your items, time things perfectly when it comes to windows and pallets. And she's ultimately very demanding, but we're going to be going over her traits, or sorry, not traits, her skills in depth. So the first skill that we're going to be going over is the replay skill. This is basically what you're going to be collecting when you record a survivor and they're interacting with something. If you record a survivor and they don't interact with any object or any pallet, there is nothing that's going to be captured, so you're not going to get a scroll essentially. If they do drop a pallet or do any interactions, it is going to turn into a scroll. It's important to note that when you do capture a replay from a survivor, you actually gain 2 interactions per scroll for a survivor. If you record yourself and you do a swing or a vault, you only do 1 replay ability for yourself. You can hold up to 3 interactions. They could be the same interactions, such as vaulting or decoding, or just swing for yourself. But it can be a little hard to manage when you're chasing, because you have to be paying attention to what you have as well as what you're recording. Sometimes when you record, it's really up to the survivor whether they want to interact with something or not. But there are ways around it. So the next ability we're going to be going over is the replay mode. And oh my god, this ability, you need to be paying attention to it at all times while you're chasing and you are setting scrolls in interaction spots. Because say a survivor is throwing a pallet, if you record them throwing a pallet and you use a scroll, right now it's facing right, so the ability is only going to be going forward, it's not going to be going in reverse. If you put that replay on a pallet, it's going to cancel out and you just wasted a scroll. If you record a survivor, I highly recommend putting this in reverse so you sandbag them at windows or pallets. On the contrary, if you record yourself breaking a pallet, I highly recommend leaving this on forward. That way, when a survivor does drop another pallet, you could go ahead and use your scroll to break another pallet, or your recording will be breaking the pallet, not you. And now we have the recording ability. This is going to be your main go-to when you're basically selecting survivors or yourself. You want to tap it if you want to record yourself. If you want to record a survivor, you have to hold it. You will hear a little bleep when it's you're locked onto a survivor, and then you just let go and it's going to start recording them for 12 seconds. There is a strategic way to recording them, which I will explain right now, and that is when you record a survivor and you're holding the button down, it won't start recording until you let go. What I suggest you do is hold the button down, lock onto a survivor, and when a survivor runs through a pallet or is about to go to a window, then start recording them. You want to keep your recordings very short because when you place them on a window or a pallet, you want to keep the recording short. That way it sandbags them. If you record roughly like 5 seconds before they get to a window and then you place it, you're going to see them running. You're going to see their record animation run towards it, and then you're just going to miss the sandbag. And the final ability we have is Inspect. This basically works just kind of like Mad Eyes' machines, where you kind of hover over a cipher machine or a gate. It's a lot easier to maneuver because you just hold it, you aim, and you let go, and the Inspect is going to hover over it on a bird's eye view for the cipher machine or the exit gate. This is mostly just to pressure survivors on cipher machines. You can record them, and then if they stay on the machine, you can actually just place 2 of their recording phantoms on the machine and regress it if you want. Just make sure that you have the replay on forward. That you have it on backwards and not forward. Unless you want to pop the last cipher while you're camping, then in which case, make sure you have a survivor decoding recording in hand. That way you could pop the last cipher with the replay going forward. Now to cover her passive trait, she has Invalid. This passive trait essentially gives her a built-in confined space. As long as she is recording, whatever interactions happen in that recording, whether it be her or the survivor, the window will become blocked, or if a survivor vaults a pallet while they're being recorded, the pallet's going to be blocked for roughly 10 seconds, I think. Yeah, it's 10 seconds. And for her final ability, she has Review at full presence. This essentially cuts any filler when it comes to interactions for her or the survivors. You can actually turn this off or on if you want to. It can come in handy in some situations, but most of the time you're just going to keep this on just to cut the filler and keep the interaction. Okay, I can already feel this is going to be a really long video just because she has so much in her kit. So let's go ahead and jump into a custom match. I already have some pre-recorded abilities for her. Let's go ahead and show them. So when you start a match, I recommend using the record button because you do want to have a scroll on you before you get into chase when you find the first survivor. It's good to get near a window and record yourself vaulting the window like this, and then end the recording fast because you want to keep your recordings very short. Once you get your recording, you can basically block a window for a survivor and then get an early hit. A lot could be recorded with Clerk, and sometimes it's hard to tell what you even recorded. So I went ahead and basically labeled all the things that could be recorded. What's in red is what Clerk records for herself, and what's in blue is what the survivors record. From there, you can go ahead and choose if you want to reverse it or forward it, so you could like block a survivor or regress a cipher. It's your choice. But with our hunter window recording, we're gonna go ahead and drag it up to the window in front of us, and it's gonna body block the mechanic from vaulting. If you have to time it right, it's a little easier with hunter, but we were able to get the terror shock right there after the body block. So now we're going to be focusing on pallet drops. I'm going to be recording my little friend here, and she's going to be dropping the pallets. I'm just going to be dropping both of them. And essentially what I'm going to do is hit the reverse button. If you see on the right, I hit it backwards, the reverse button. So when you drag the recording of the pallet drop, it should reverse the action. So there's one. And then I'm going to be placing the other one over here. And then that's 2. And always remember that when a survivor is interacting with something and you're recording them, you want to cut the recording by tapping the record button again. That's how you cancel it. Right when they finish the interaction. That way when you reverse the interaction on the pallet, you'll get like an instant pallet pickup and you can walk right through it. Otherwise, you're just going to be catching the survivor running around the pallet before she picks it up, and it's going to be wasting a lot of time. In this case, you'll see the mechanic. I'm going forward now. She's dropping the pallet. You see all this walking animation right here? Like, you want to have as little of that as possible. So next for the hunter's sight, I didn't really want to cover this because it's not that good, but it's basically recording her attack. It's very finicky. It's weird. Like, I guess they nerfed it. There's like a 2 second lag now before she swings. The hitbox is kind of small. It's definitely not reliable for chases. I definitely recommend just focusing on windows and pallets. But yeah, this recording of her hitting just isn't like too good. Maybe you could bait like a regular potato survivor, but it's not gonna work in like high tiers or anything. Yeah, definitely stick with windows and pallets for now. So right here, I wanted to test what she would get if she did 2 different interactions. She did a cypher machine and now she's dropping a pallet. I stopped the recording and the scroll that I got was for her decoding. So I went ahead and put the recording on the cypher machine and try to do it on the pallet. It's a little finicky. You see that it goes for one but not the other, but they both work. She ended up lifting the pallet even though it was red, and then she went back to decode when it was on reverse. The hunter just came out, so there's bound to be some bugs. I hope they fix that in a few weeks because, you know, she needs it. She needs a few fixes. A few quality of life changes will help. So right here, I'm going to be demonstrating her invalid passive ability. Basically, when she's recording and a survivor is interacting with anything, that is going to become blocked after you click the recording and it's finished. As you can see here, we have the window and the 2 pallets blocked, and she cannot interact with those for 10 seconds. But of course, if you've seen it once, you've seen it a million times. We're going to be popping the cipher. I went ahead and recorded the mechanic while she was decoding. Be sure, if you want to pop it, that your recording is put on forward, not on reverse. That way you go ahead and pop the cipher. So go ahead and bear with me. We're almost done with this video. There's so much, there's so little things that I probably miss here and there. But we're going to be going over her full presence, which is review. And essentially what it does is that it cuts the filler, as we explained in the very beginning. Basically demonstrating as I walked around and vaulted. You see all these lines here. I went ahead and turned it off. So yeah, you're going to see me dancing around and then vault. And that's with it turned off. And if you click it, it'll turn on. And then I recorded myself again. Turning, and then we're going to be vaulting. And assuming it's turned on, you could go ahead and vault, and you won't have to worry about all the filler line, being there. You just get the interaction right away. All right, so the last thing we're going to be talking about is her control scheme. I mean, just look at this. This is ridiculous, man. Like, I've now seen so much.
Jesus Christ.
Like, now you could go ahead and change this. This is mine on the right here. I went ahead and edited on the settings, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to kind of adjust it, because on default, you could misclick a lot. You could press your scrolls and use them on accident. And it's just really hard to use your camera. Like, you can't really move left or right because you have to, move all the way up. So if you do want to change your settings, you can go ahead and follow along with me. You can go ahead and click the gear on the top right. Under the game, you want to scroll down a little bit, and you're going to find custom settings. You're going to be clicking custom settings, bam, right there. And under custom operations, you're going to be clicking survivors all, and then select hunter on the bottom right. Scroll down, and you're going to find Clerk right there. She's the only one that I have updated at the moment. Like, I don't really need to update the other hunters, but from what you see here, here's her control scheme. This one is already slightly edited, but you can go ahead and click on the scrolls. You can shrink it, you can make them big, you can make them small, you can move them around. I recommend moving them a little closer to the pages in the vault. If you click on the play where you go fast or back, you can go ahead and switch it with like the attack or anything. I don't suggest moving any of the first 4 on the corner right. I would focus more on the scrolls because that's where you're going to be accidentally touching the most. But I'm going to go ahead and move my trump card switch on top of the ear, and I'm going to move the scrolls a little bit higher here, and I'm going to be changing the size too just as soon as I adjust it. So we're going to go ahead and move these here. You can always adjust it the way you like to. I just personally do it this way, just so I have room for my thumb to like move the camera when I'm like hunting. This way I found to be a little bit more easier to use. The scrolls are small enough for you to easily click, not too small to where you can't click them at all. So this seems to help. This is a good setup right here. And you just hit back, and then that's your settings. That's your control scheme for Clerk. Now I didn't get to cover everything. I didn't cover the bird's eye view because I mean that's, I just didn't really have the time to do it. But you just kind of hover over it, you place it on a cipher, and you kind of do the same thing. You hold down the record button, and you basically record a survivor decoding, or you could get them off the cipher. It's good pressure. But if you implement everything we just kind of covered in the video, you could implement it in a game like this and against real survivors, and you could get some good wins. She's a really good hunter. But I hope this video helps. This is the end of the video. Like, as we mentioned before, she's a very complex hunter. She has a lot in her kit. She's very fun and very rewarding. She does need a few quality of life changes here and there, but ultimately, I could see her being, a good A tier. I would put her in A tier. If I could, I'd put her like close to S tier, just because she has so much in her kit. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys like the new hunter? You guys, enjoying learning her? Do you plan on learning her? I recommend you do try to learn her. But yeah, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you all in the banner.